Initially, when I did this, I did not see.
Okay. And when you limited it to, I believe it's the 10th through the 12th?
That was, again, astronomical, in my opinion, because that shouldn't happen. Unless something happened to those files, a file was manipulated, something. Again, it led to suspicion of, like, why did that occur?
And again, does that mean that those files were genuinely created on the 10th through the 12th and something bad happened to them, or could it have happened at any time?
If there's an anomaly in the system, you are going to get some files that will have an invalid timestamp. It happens, even with updates. But to have that degree leads me to believe the otherwise, that somebody altered those files, potentially altered those files.
Okay. And during the time on July 11th, during the time of the Google map search, at that point, is that what you encountered?
Yes. Again, it was brought to my attention that that was suspicious. That shouldn't have happened. Why? I tried to look at, there was no metadata. There was just no metadata with those. I did not find, and I do want to state, I did not find any wiping software on that laptop. Wiping software, and what we call as anti-forensic software, because one of the first things I look at when I get involved with a case, I have to put myself inside that person, so to speak. If it's a certain case, I know where certain places I'm going to look. And one of the first things I'm going to look for is some kind of program that's wiping software, and we call that malware, or better terminology is anti-forensic, so it prevents me from finding the data.
Now, there was in addition to the master file table that you were provided by the FBI, did they also include their own Vista fresh install test MFT?
Yes.
Okay, if we could move on to that. With respect to valid versus invalid standard information entry modified timestamps, there has been testimony that the FBI said, well, it's about the same as what it was on the IBM. Is that what you found?
No. No, there was a higher percentage on the IBM laptop.
And on the FBI's version of the Vista install, do you recall how many files total there actually were?
I can't recall right offhand. I apologize.
That's good. With respect to the time of the Google map search, did you take the time to evaluate the cursor files?
I did.
And in evaluating the cursor files, did you note the times at which the files were created, accessed, modified for each one of those files?
Yes, everything was the same.
Now, could you explain how it is the cursor file really works, and how it, and what you would expect to see with those times?
Typically when you run the cursor, and even if you're going to different levels, it will register in the computer. It'll register showing that you're going up to another level, another level, another level. Or if you're moving the file around, everything gets registered. So when you're clicking down, it becomes what's called a closed hand. When you're scrolling, you still have an open hand. Now, in the files here, for instance, registered as a bitmap. And that's, again, not uncommon because it does happen. Typically, a cursor file is a .cur.
Okay. But if you were to take a pointer, take that open hand or a closed hand, and actually use it on the map to move from one place to another, would you ever expect to see the same time listed for the last time it was accessed and the time it was created?
When you first create that file, like as you see up there, that's a file that's been created and it hasn't gone back to. If you change that file, it will show a change on that file. I didn't see any changes. Everything was exactly the same. If I'm moving to the next level, if I'm going to zoom in and I'm using the cursor, if I'm using the cursor, it should show another timestamp showing another creation date, but everything was the same on all the cursors. It didn't make much sense to me.
Okay. When trying to corroborate what happens over the internet, what somebody's doing on the internet, is there a value to looking toward cookies?
Absolutely.
Could you explain what that is and why that is?
Cookies are like a tracking device. Anytime you've been on the internet, a cookie will attach to your browser. Okay, that's how we love that as a forensic examiner, because we can go in and see where you've been. If there's no cookies, I can't technically see what time you were there. I may find a trace that you've been to a website, but if there's no cookies, I can't validate that. But the cookie is extremely important.
Was there any cookie present at all that corresponded to the search on July 11th in Google Maps?
I did not see that.
Did you see a deleted version of a cookie from?
I did. As I recall, there was also a deleted watermark stamp on a Google search, Google map.
Okay, and what did a deleted watermark stamp mean?
Okay, that told me so, in fact, I think it even had an invalid timestamp associated with it, I believe. That means that that file isn't a good file. Because based on other cases I've done with timestamps, watermarks that are proprietary information, like Google's information is proprietary, when we see an altered watermark, that means that file's been tampered with.
Okay. Inside the cookie itself, what kind of information is contained in there?
Where the person has been, metadata. There's metadata in there.
And there's no real way to forge a cookie to put it on somebody's computer, is there?
I could drop a cookie on someone's computer if I wanted to, using the right forensics or quote-unquote hacker tool.
But if somebody were to subpoena the records from Google to ask who did this search and when was it done, would the information that they got back trace to the person's machine you put it on, or would it trace back to you?
It would give you the information on that cookie for that user.
And when you say for that user, are you saying the
The
person?
browser, I'm sorry, the browser.
So the
That's
person,
identifiable with that laptop.
the person that actually did the search,
Absolutely.
not the person whose machine it gets put on.
Someone who did the search.
Now, of the deleted cookies that you found, there were none from July 11th. Is that correct?
Which again led to suspicion.
Now, in your experience, does law enforcement rely upon cookies to seek out more information from internet providers?
Yes, what happens is because we write search warrants for law enforcement, and we put everything and anything that's applicable to that user account. We want all the information, and we try not to leave anything out. You want to get the Google cookie because that gives us browser information. So everything's there. I did look at what was written, and I didn't see anything by law enforcement, that was written in the search warrant, and there was no mention of cookie. It's been my experience that Google will only give you what you ask for, and that's it. Same thing with Yahoo and some of the other providers.
Now, did you look at the single sheet of data that from the FBI's test search where they attempted to replicate the Google map search?
Yes.
And in their test search, did they actually show a cookie had been downloaded onto their system?
It was I can't recall. I'm trying to remember what I might be getting confused. There was the bitmap. Do you have a, thank you. Do you mind if I refer to my notes?
Go right ahead, though. I think I should be able to.
Do you have it on the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the second line down from the bottom,
Yes.
is that essentially what we're talking about? We're
Yes.
talking about cookies?
Yes. And I did review one of the reports with the net analysis that you utilized, and you can bring up the cookies.
And
Different searches.
several lines above that, is there a cursor file?
Yes.
And what's the extension that exists for that particular cursor file?
The .cur.
Did you read the report on tampering, or the rebuttal report on tampering that was initially anonymous, that was written by Officer Chappell?
I did, but I can't recall everything on it at this.
Okay. Do you recall if he said whether or not he had found a cookie on the system?
I believe it did say there was a cookie, but I think I heard that it was redacted. There, I haven't seen any evidence of any cookie being, nothing's been shown to me, let's put it that way.
Were there other issues that you found with the IBM ThinkPad that concerned you in terms of how it had been handled by law enforcement subsequent to collection?
Yes. First of all, again, the computer was left on, which again is not typical forensic protocol. The RAM should have been extracted using a forensic tool, then the computer should have been powered down. And again, as my understanding, it's been left on for 20 hours, which I could see evidence of files being changed, deleted. Deleted was very surprising to see that files were deleted on there. I don't understand why the files would have been deleted when there shouldn't have been no access to that computer. I did find evidence of malware, and the type of malware that I stated in my report, those are command and control. Even though they're low threats, they still have the capability of potentially having a backdoor to them. They do have backdoors.
And when you say backdoor, what are you referring to?
The backdoor, what happens is when a hacker hacks in and puts a Trojan on a computer, they leave an opening. It's kind of like leaving the back door open on your house, okay, or making a duplicate key. So this way you can have your door locked, but they're still able to have access into that back door, or the door is left open. Your front door is locked, but your back door is left open. They leave an opening. They leave a crack.
Okay. And are you aware of how the computer was stored at the Cary Police Department after it was collected?
I know part of it. Part that I understand, the computer was locked in a room. I do not know if there was security. All I know is that 3 officers had keys, and it was left on a desk.
Was that room an evidence room?
To my knowledge, it wasn't. Which, again, I'm very surprised.
Having looked through the data on the machine, do you have an opinion satisfactory to yourself as a computer forensics expert as to whether or not that machine was tampered with?
It is my opinion that with all the suspicious activity that I found on it, the files that were altered, that there's definite spoliation on that computer, which would lead me to believe that it was tampered with. I couldn't tell you who exactly did it, but I can tell you it's been tampered.
And when you say you can't really tell who did it, is that because of the wireless network?
Well, I mean, you can see that, true. I don't know who's on the other end. I know for a fact that there was, the Cisco network was on through the VPN, so the computer was being accessed by the VPN tunnel, the program that was there.
And once in this condition, is there anything that can be done to verify the data as accurate or remove this taint?
Now, I've worked all sorts of cases. I do a lot of work with law enforcement and government agencies besides corporations. And one of the first things I do is, who touched it? Who touched the computer? I need to know because I'm going to see that there was accesses. And I see those things. And I tell them, you need to document everything that you do.